Hello. This week I'm going to do a bit of a testathon of all this audio and video equipment that I've collected over a period of time. It's quite a lot to get through there. I really don't need anything else, but
special delivery.
Oh my goodness. And whatever's in this box I'll also test. So let's get stuck in. Okay, let's look at what we have. Another item which I've missed out the list just now, there's the amplifier, which we looked at briefly a while ago, a media operator Bluetooth set, RGB signal converter, a video corrector, AV selector, I think this is NTSC, and then the contents of the box as well, which is... and it's a digital audio processor CDM-820 ES. I've got one of these already that's been modified to have digital out. But this one is in absolutely glorious cosmetic condition. Really nice. Okay, so plenty to test. Probably more than we can do in one sort of session. Some of this might be part 2, but or even part 3. Let's see how we get on. So where do we begin? The amplifier here, the Cambridge Audio Azure 340A. When we'd looked inside this, there was some debate about whether the capacitors had glue on them or had leaked, and the consensus is people have commented and said that they look like that, they've got glue on them, that's where they're supplied. So this should be fine. So that should be a fairly easy thing to test. I just need to hook up some speakers and that should be straightforward. This is an interesting thing, American Audio Media Operator Bluetooth. So it's an AV switch, I think, with microphone inputs and another microphone input and Bluetooth so it can play out a Bluetooth audio recorded on secure digital or USB, I think. But it's just line out, isn't it? It's not speaker out. So we could use that in conjunction with the amplifier, so we can test them both together. This can act as a source. Okay, that's quite useful in that case. JVC RGB signal converter, KMV7EK. So it's got some gain controls, a power switch, input on SCART, and output also on SCART. So, and what does it say? YC, so it can do S-video in, or automatically, or composite. So I guess it can also do output YC, I would have imagined, but I don't see how you select that option. So it's just color, contrast and brightness control at composite or S-video. Then this JVC, so this is a more sophisticated version of that, I suppose. So you've got color adjustments, so you can alter the you can just sort of slightly alter the color. It's not like you're going to have much control over it. It's just going to give you more of the various colors. It's not like you've got any control over the lowlights and highlights. I don't see anyway. Audio mix. So you can mix audio, but can you mix video? That would be a major extra feature. So it's got composite video in and audio in and external audio in, and then monitor and recorder composite out, and a noise filter. Okay, this is 240 volts, so this would be PAL as well. So that's all well and good, isn't it? But it's all composite video. So that might have been the sort of thing someone would have used back in the sort of VHS days, but it's not really useful today. You could do, voiceover and stuff like that, but since it's only composite video, it's not of any use today for doing video transfers, because you try to avoid composite video at all costs. And then the final one, right, this is the one I think has an USA plug on it, so it would be NTSC. So it's a source selector for S-video and composite and audio, and you can set which input is selected when you power it up, I think. So how many source inputs does it have? So we have 1, 2, and then 3 at the front, 4, 5, 6, 7, and then outputs 1, 2, and I think another one at the front, 4, and a monitor out, 120 volt. Now this may or may not operate with composite PAL and or S-video PAL, but it wouldn't be able to do any transcoding between composite and S-video and back again in PAL. It would only be able to do that in NTSC. However, this could be useful to me because I have a suite of NTSC video recorders. I have 3 or 4 NTSC beta machines plus an NTSC Laserdisc player. So all of those could be hooked up to this, making a nice decent switch for them. So that could actually be quite handy. I think this might be the first one we test, actually. I have a time-based corrector here, which I can set up to produce an NTSC output, and I can hook it up to this TV, which will take NTSC. So let's hook that up and see what it does. Set the TBC up to be outputting color bars. Let's switch this on. And I'm not plugged into anything yet, so let's do that. We'll just do S-video initially. What does it say? Processor and source. I don't know what the difference is. Okay, I'm not sure which input I'm connected to. I'll just cycle through them. Aha. So processor video. So what does processor do? I think that will require the remote control. Do we have the remote control? Let's have a look for it. Well, I went looking for the remote control. There's a big bag of goodies came with it. It includes the instructions for the video corrector we were looking at a moment ago. We'll come back to that later. We'll look in the bag of goodies. But I also found another thing to test. And I don't know exactly what this is, but some kind of audio-video switch box or converter. We'll look at that one again. Super multi-screen with pattern generator. Could be just about anything, so we'll come to that one later. Wow, we have a lot. So what's in the goodies box? Universal remote control. Huge SCART cable. Remote control for something. Is it this one? It might be. That might be the remote for this. Another remote control from JVC. This looks like a video recorder remote, and is not hugely dissimilar actually from a remote control that I was looking at some time ago on my video about secret remote controls, where you have special remote controls that program equipment. A transformer that could have been used for this. I'm presently running this on my isolation transformer, so that could have been an easy way to connect it up. And heads for 3V43, 3V53. Really, that's quite an old one, which is, I'm guessing, a hi-fi machine. Looking at the heads, let's put that back very carefully. And finally, a thing that says it does composite to S-video, but you know, they're a bit limited, aren't they? Right, so let's pop a couple of AAAs in there and see if it works, this thing. Oh, and one more box. Shinybow, seeing is believing, 8x8 matrix switcher. So we'll add that to our list of things to look at. Okay, let's see if power works. Yes, that does. what's odd is that usually you've got a red light like this. It goes green when it's powered up and red in standby. It's the other way around on this one. Well, it's red when on and off. So source select, well, that's not doing anything because we're in processor mode. So processor, audio and video, there we are. That's those switches there. And aux, switch that on as well for audio. So what does the processor do? Oh, there we are. Unusually, the remote control actually says, oh, it says remote control for JXS510, and this is a JXS700. So it may not be exactly the right remote control. We really need to find the instructions for this, don't we? Because we don't know what half of this does. Right, having looked at the instructions, that is the correct remote control, and I'm using this wrong. This is for a processor which is, for example, a video titler. We don't have one of those, so that's in and out just for that purpose. So we'll ignore that for the time being. Let's go source 3 input. Here we go. Right, and now select source 3, take off the processor. There we go. Right, that makes sense now. So this can just be used as a source selector, and it says S in here. That S in light is lit. I don't know if you can quite see that, because it always prioritizes S video over composite. Right, so basically that is just a video switcher for composite and S video and NTSC, which is useful to me. The only thing that worries me was that transformer we saw earlier. Right, I could go ahead and connect this up to my NTSC equipment and use it as a video switcher. It looks perfect for that. The only thing that worries me a little bit is that this will be a auto transformer, non-isolated. And if the other equipment is also run off auto transformers, there are certain safety hazards about running multiple pieces of equipment off auto transformers. In particular, if terminals get swapped somewhere along the line due to bad wiring, there can be safety hazards. But we'll have to tackle that. So I think I'm going to hook this up to my NTSC equipment. Okay, the JVC switch box is now connected up here, and it's hooking up a whole heap of video recorders to the capture system. And that saves, well, that's removed, allows us to remove this old cheap and cheerful switch here that doesn't have very good screening in it and may not be, the highest quality switch in the world. And this allows more inputs as well. So it's a nice piece of kit, that. But how upset would JVC have been if they'd known that their machine was going to be used almost entirely with Betamax video recorders? Right, so that's one audio video switcher in use. Let's have a look at this other one that I found when I was looking for something else. So this is Shinybow matrix switcher, and I think it's 8x8, so 8 in or 8 out, which might be useful in some circumstances, though in my particular case I tend to just want multiple in to 1 out usually. Let's have a look at this. Right, this has rack mount ears, so it's for at least sort of semi-commercial use, and it looks like it's probably in and out. It isn't labelled as such, but it's got 1 to 8, 2 buttons for each, so presumably in at the top, out at the bottom. Let's have a look around the back. So perhaps disappointingly, this one's composite video and audio only. It's also got RS-232 remote control. It's got a cable. So that might be disappointing, except that I do actually have a use for this, because I have another one of those mechanical switches being used for switching between machines that have only got composite video. So it switches between a couple of V2000 machines, an N1500, N1700. Don't tell me there's an S-video mod for those, I know, and I don't like it. And CVC and other composite video only machines. So I could use this. The only thing against it for me is a little bit bulky. Right, so let's test it anyway. So we've got the power adapter. We even have RS232 and wireless remote control. So this should be fairly straightforward to use. Oh, we've got model numbers information there. Made in Taiwan. So matrix switch with infrared and RS232. SB5548 I think it is. Alright, let's give it a whirl. So I've reconfigured my time-based corrector into PAL mode. Again, select test output. I need phono to phono, so BNC to phono won't work for me on this case. Right, so I've got this hopefully connected to input number 1, composite video only, no audio connection in a minute, and the monitor connected to number 8 output. So we switch this on. Not quite sure what sort of display we're going to get, if anything. Oh, that's on. So it just seems to have numbers 1 through 8 there. I'm not sure what it's expecting to do. If I select input 1, oh, I see. Oh, I think I see. Oh, these buttons are up and down. That's what they do. So I think if I say 1 goes to 8. Okay, the instructions are confusing. For a start, it shows buttons that don't exist, which would be under here. I guess it's for different models. And it goes on about what codes it sends out, because most people don't know or care what the codes are, unless you're doing the RS232 bit. But I think what we're trying to do is we're calling that TV1 because it's on... No, we're calling it TV8. So we want TV8 to be AV1. Ah, got it. Finally understood it. So TV8 is our output, and we're telling it to be number 1. So that's this light here. And TV1 will also be fed out to number 1, so we could disable that. Right, okay. So kind of understand that. One thing I've noticed here is the brightness of these varies depending on how many segments are lit, and we all know what that means, don't we? So when you have an LED, a 7-segment LED like this, you need to have 1 resistor per segment, so that as you'd have a common anode or a common cathode, and then the other terminal goes via its own resistor to the driver chip for each segment. But what they've done here to save money or something is they've got the segments wired directly to the chip and a single common resistor in the common anode or common cathode, depending which way around it's wired. And the effect of that is that the voltage dropped on that resistor will vary depending how many segments are lit. So if we look here, I'll look at it, get it close in on it. Number 1 here has very few segments, so it's fairly bright. But if we switch to number 8, it has far more segments, and so it's much dimmer. So that's the way not to configure an LED 7-segment display. So despite all that nonsense, it does seem to be working fine. Let's take a look inside. We'll take the lid off. We can probably see what I'm talking about with those resistors too. Power off. Here we are, and those lights all go out. I'll switch it off there as well. Let's take a look inside this one. Well, I was complaining it was too big. They could have made it a bit smaller, at least in that dimension. So it all is built around this chip here, which is a device made by Atmel. I think it's dated 2007. It looks like an attempt has been made to rub off the markings on these chips as well, so they're trying to keep something secret. Let's take a look at this display panel board. Taking a closer look at this front panel board, then we see the driver ICs, and I count a total of 8 220 ohm resistors. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So they've only got one per display, and that's why the display looks so ugly. Right, I'll reassemble all this in a moment. What do you think? Would you say this is a piece of equipment that is intended for domestic use or commercial use or both? It's odd, it seems to sit in the middle, doesn't it? It's built, I mean it's got ears, it's built like commercial equipment. It's got RS-232, it's got instructions on what code to send, the RS-232 system. It feels commercial. But it then goes on about, if you look at the instructions, it talks about switching games and video recorders and DVD players through to lots of different TVs. So then it feels more domestic. I'd suspect it's very expensive domestic or low-end commercial. That's what I'm going to call it. You could have used it for some CCTV applications because you could control the camera you're looking at with the RS-232. Okay, that's all reassembled, except I've left the ears off because when I install this downstairs, it'll be easier for me to not have the ears on. I will use this remote control rather than the RS-232. It comes with a disc of some sort. Oh, it comes with a disc which would have had software on it for use with the serial port, except this disc is having a bit of a personality crisis, so I don't think that's going to work. Oh, but tell you what, this does show you something. Let me show you this. This shows you how a CD works, because the data is recorded on that. So people think the data is recorded on the shiny, on the surface, but it's not. It's recorded on the opposite side. So when that was in one piece, the data is on this film on the top, which is why it's so important with CDs that you don't scratch the top surface, because that's actually what contains the data, and this is just polycarbonate layer, but that is where your data is recorded. So that's quite interesting, but that does mean we don't have the software. It probably is available somewhere. But not many machines have RS-232 these days anyway. Right, so that's the Shinybow 8x8 AV matrix switcher. Let's move on to some different things. The next item I'm going to be looking at was another one of the extras that I found when digging around. And it's strangely sort of unbranded. It's not terribly clear exactly what it is. It says Super Multi-System with Pattern Generator. So let's find out what this is. NTSC to PAL, PAL to NTSC converter, CDM-820. Okay, and from a company in New South Wales, Australia, converters.tv. Okay. Okay, so it can input video, which I presume will be composite video, S1 or S2, which will be presumably S video, and input NTSC or PAL, no CCAM, output NTSC or PAL. Okay, it's quite heavy actually, surprisingly heavy. So there we are, composite video in, I'm not sure why there's a switch there, it seems to be a two-way switch. Oh no, it's a three-way switch. Okay, so you've got indicators on the front, but the switch is on the back. Bit of an ergonomic fail. NTSC or PAL or auto input, and then another NTSC PAL switch. Color on off. Why do you switch it off? And outputs can be composite or S video. Mains. What's not obvious to me is, well, we won't know until we try it. How good is the NTSC's PAL conversion? Because some units, including these very good, actually, time-based correctors, the NTSC to PAL conversion in them is simple. So it does it by chopping out or repeating frames and doing the same for lines. So the results are a little choppy. Motion looks jumpy. So A better solution is if you can have interpolation, but that's much more expensive. And I've featured a time-based corrector before, which does include NTSC PAL interpolation, and so I can play NTSC into that and convert it to PAL, and it looks quite respectable. So, does this do interpolation? That's one of the things we're going to have to find out. And the other question I have is whether it can accept pseudo PAL input. That's to say, when something like an NTSC tape is played on a machine that's PAL for the PAL market, it will very often output NTSC 4.43. So you get NTSC line and frame rates, but PAL color. And a lot of systems, a lot of converters like the Canopus ADVC 55s that I use won't accept NTSC 4.43. It has to be pure NTSC or PAL. Well, looking at the instructions, got 8 megabit field memory, digital comb filter, good. Time-based corrector. It is a time-based corrector. I wonder if that works if it's within a format, so PAL to PAL. That would be quite useful. Automatic gain, and it says color bar will automatically appear on the screen when there is no input signal. That's always handy as well. Input systems, NTSC 3.58 and PAL. So no, it won't accept NTSC with PAL color. That's a shame. That would have been useful. 500 lines resolution and 110 or 220 volts input voltage. So, okay, well, let's give this a whirl and see how it looks. What I'm going to do then is initially I'll go PAL to PAL, then just make sure that works. Then I'll switch it PAL to NTSC. So we'll be playing a PAL tape there with some movement on it, and let's see if that looks reasonably smooth when played back on this TV. Unfortunately, it may look less good to you anyway because you'll be watching on a PAL camcorder, but I'll just have to look at it and give you my opinion of what it looks like, because it may not show quite so well on the screen. But we'll see how that goes. Right, I've switched it on. Quite a loud transformer buzz from it. I've initially got it PAL in, PAL out. Its input is S-video from an old camcorder I have here, and the output is composite video just connected to that TV. So initially, if I just play a bit of the tape, it should appear on that TV. I've got the sound not connected at the moment. Right, that's a nice clear picture. So now I'm going to output now I'm going to try outputting NTSC, which I think is this switch. TV takes a moment to get over that. And now we'll play that tape. So we're now going output NTSC. I'm seeing in movement there's a lot of strange lines going on. What was a nice smooth vertical line is now breaking up badly when there's movement. I would say it's not bad. The movement looks reasonably fluid. I can see a certain amount of shudderiness, mainly in the edges. Yes, I would say that the effect is that the body of the item there that's moving looks reasonably fluid, but the edges break up into lots of little lines. Maybe that was a particularly demanding shot. This one here, you would say, yeah, that for an NTSC to PAL conversion, it's okay, but I can still see lots of little lines rippling where things move. In this case, just the pattern on this baby's top is just where the bubbles are in the wool. It's breaking into little lines as it moves. So it's adequate. If I switch that to PAL now, if I've got the right switch, switch it back to PAL, oh, it's just perfect now. There's none of those horrible artifacts going on. So as an NTSC to PAL conversion system, it's, yes, gets the job done, I think would be the best way to describe it. Somebody else trying to keep some secrets. They've scrubbed out all the IC markings. Oh dear. Yeah, that's all a little bit sad. It's not like anyone's ever going to take the lid off and start poking about inside looking at the chips, is it? Oh, no. So what we do see is, again, a lot of wasted space in here. They could have shrunk this box significantly, but I guess they want to keep the full width so that it can fit with video recorders and things, but they could have reduced the depth of it a little bit, maybe. But there we go. There's no more to see in here. We know there's some memory. The instructions say that anyway, but beyond that we don't know anything about what's going on in here. There's a relay. I mean, even an IC that's socketed, presumably that has firmware on it, even that's had its markings scratched off. Yes, so we can't go any further with that. So I see that the supplier of this do still provide NTSC PAL converters, and that the newer ones do include NTSC 4.43 that this doesn't, but may not include S-Video, which I think is really quite important that this does. So as a converter, this is kind of not great. However, if, and there's no real way of testing this right now, if this acts as a time-based corrector when going PAL to PAL, then it's more useful in that mode than it is in NTSC PAL conversion. So that'd be interesting to know, but there's no obvious way of testing that. You'd need to feed it with a poor quality input signal, one that's got timing problems, and see if it tidies it up. Quite a tricky thing to set up and test. Was I being a bit harsh on that? You know, the best way to find out would be to compare it to this. I know that the NTSC and PAL conversion on this is primitive, but does it look better or worse than that other box? So let's set up the test with this one. Okay, now this is the GTH ACE time-based corrector and enhancer and various other functions, and I've featured this in a deep dive video I did a while ago with the guy who designed this, and it's a fascinating piece of equipment and very useful, but the NTSC to PAL conversion is simple. Right, so at the moment I've got this in PAL to PAL mode and the picture looks perfect. So I'm now, there's not a lot of colour in this particular scene, we're not worrying about that. Colour's fine. So now I'm going to switch this to NTSC mode. Right, so we're now in NTSC, and that's proper true NTSC 3.58, and let's look at how that works. So I would say you're not getting any of these weird edges, but the body of that thing when it falls down, that ride, is shuddery. Yes, the whole thing shudders. So when there's fast motion on this, you get a shuddery effect. The slow turning is fine, but when it falls quickly, I'm not sure you can see it. I could see it then. So that's a simple NTSC PAL conversion. However, it's not giving those jaggy edges that the other one was. But the motion is definitely not good on that one. These shots with less motion definitely look better on this one than they do on the other. Definitely. Looks much better on this. So you can argue it both ways. It looks like on the Australian sourced piece of equipment, they've tried to solve that problem of things being movement looking terribly blocky and jerky. But in doing so, they may have actually created a new problem with the edges looking jagged, whereas this one doesn't have that. So, argue it both ways. Neither of them are particularly good for that particular function. Right, sticking with our theme of testing mostly the video-based equipment at the moment, we've got this odd-looking thing. It's JVC RGB signal converter. So, oh yes, this is the one with the gain, contrast and brightness controls. And you can select input, YC, so that'd be S-video, or composite or automatic. And then output is via a SCART lead. Okay, so that's going to be a little fiddly for me to test because I'm going to have to reach around the back of that monitor and plug the SCART cable in. But alright, we'll set that up and see what we get. Okay, so I've got the JVC unit set up with, it's got SCART out only and SCART in. And I've got it to a SCART breakout cable which has got composite video connected to the back of my time-based corrector, which is now back in PAL mode, and I will select color bars output from that and switch on the JVC. There's a switch for S-video mode, but it's not S-video. Ooh. Okay, well it's not an S-video signal, so I wouldn't expect good results there, but I go to composite. Oh, now it works! Switch problem, maybe? What do you think? Switch it off and on again. Oh, it's working. Oh. We have a problem with this one, don't we? And it's not cabling, because if it was cabling, it would happen when it was in that S-video mode. So it's a fault in here. Oh well, that gives us something to fix. Let's take it apart and find out what it is. But while it's just in its working mode, let's do, if we can get it to keep working, brightness down. Not sure it's doing anything. Contrast. Colour. No. It's not working anywhere. It's... How odd. Oh, so when it's in the S-video mode, which of course is incorrect with the input signal, the controls do seem to do something. Right, but when in composite mode, the controls aren't doing anything. I find that very odd. And it's RGB signal converter, so maybe the output is RGB, red, green, blue, not composite out. That's a good thing if this can go composite into RGB out, or it would be good if it worked. Before I spend too long trying to work out why the composite video input is intermittent on this, let's actually use it in the way it's supposed to be used, which is S-video in. So I have an adapter here that I hope will help. I'll set that to input and put S-video in from here, and then the controls should work. Let's give that a spin. And that's a massively better picture too, because we've gone S-video to RGB. There's no composite involved. And that's what this is about. It's S-video to RGB. I actually tried to build a device that did this function way back in the late 90s and never got satisfactory results from it. But it was a design, I think, in a magazine or something, and I had the PCB and it should have worked, but it didn't work. So this now is doing its job properly. So I think if we can, we can turn the colour up and down, not completely off, you'll notice. And contrast and brightness. Good. That's working brilliantly. So why would you want this? Well, if you've got a device that only has S-video out, for example a camcorder or a DVD player, and your TV only has either composite in or RGB in via SCART and no S-video connector, then this is a good solution. And in fact, I have that very problem. We have a DVD player that we use mainly as an amplifier actually. But if I wanted to play DVDs on that, I can only connect it via composite to a TV that's about, must be about 10 years old now, a Samsung. So that never had S-video in. It's got RGB in on composite, and it's got HDMI, of course. So this actually will be ideal for connecting up in that case, apart from the fact it's a bit of a clunky thing and you have to plug it in. But apart from that, it's ideal. Right, let's have a look inside and see if we can find out why the composite connector is not working. But bearing in mind that we don't really want to use composite, because you can't usefully go composite to RGB. So all this does when you select composite in is just bypass everything anyway. It's not really terribly useful. There's a case for not even bothering to fix that fault, but we want to have a look inside anyway, don't we? My word, there's a lot in there, isn't there? But it's fundamentally built around TDA-4556, I think that is, from Philips. Well, that chip is apparently NTSC, PAL and CCAM, so perhaps in a moment we'll try giving it some different input signals, but that may or may not work. So we have delay line and more Philips semiconductors here, TDA-4565. There's a lot in this, and a big heavy linear transformer. One thing I like actually is that if I were to use this in that position where we would use it for DVD playback, is that the main switch is actually on the mains side. So unlike a lot of things which only switch the DC, this could be safely left plugged in and just switched on the rare occasions it's needed. So actually I think I'll do that. The thing I don't like about it, I mean, it's really nice actually, it's really well made, but the thing that lets it down, it's a bit of a stupid design fail. The point of this is we're going from S-video to RGB on SCART, but if you've got a device that's S-video only and not RGB, it's almost certainly going to have an S-video connector. So rather than having to use this adapter, they should have had an option of the S-video input socket. You could use this for audio if you want, but it should have had, perhaps it should have had separate audio inputs too. It should have had at least S-video, if not S-video, and left and right audio in. That would have been easier to hook up than this arrangement in the majority of cases where you have a device which is S-video only. As for our composite video switching error, I did wonder if it might be something to do with the switch, but it's not, I don't believe. The soldering on looks all fine on that, so it would mean taking the main board out to look at the soldering perhaps on the bottom of the SCART socket. That looks like quite a lot of work. That means a complete strip down of the whole thing, because to get the board out we have to take the pots off the front. So yes, total strip down of everything to fix a feature that we would never use. I may not worry about it. Okay, let's have a look at what happens if we feed it with signals that are not PAL. Right, we presently have a PAL output from my time-based corrector going through this. Let's switch to NTSC and see what we get. So it's NTSC, line of frame rates and colour. There we go. Restart it just to be on the safe side. No, we get a good black and white image at 60 Hz. So it just doesn't have the colour handling circuitry for NTSC. And let's try CCAM. Well, it looks okay at a glance, but the transition in the middle here from the green to the purple is really very rough. So it's kinda okay to use with CCAM, but not perfect. Go back to PAL. Good. And that idea almost worked. It does now connect to this Samsung TV, which only has RGB in. But alas, after years of waiting for someone to finally connect this thing up, the multi-change DVD player on this LG unit has stopped working. So that will be a repair job for another day. We'll obviously feature that on YouTube when we do. Nothing at all, not even trying to open. Okay, for another day. Okay, next we're going to look at the JVC video corrector JXC7, and it appears that we've got some different sources, an audio mix, and don't know what all these controls do. We've got an enhancer which we can switch off, I think. We can change color balance a bit and the amount of color, but it's all at composite video, so it's a bit limited really. But what I'll do is I'll feed in color bars from the time-based corrector into, say, VCR1 and connect our TV monitor to the output monitor, the monitor output, and see what it does. We won't really be able to try the noise filter. That actually could be a useful feature in some cases. But okay, let's plug it in and give it a whirl. Okay, so we have an image. It's very dark, so presumably that's because of a setting here somewhere. Let's see what we can do to sort that out. So, main output, max, min. And there's a video output, minimum and normal. So when that's set to normal, it looks about right. And then we've got extra brightness, which just sort of blows out the picture down to 0. And then this is audio output. Right, okay, so this is fader, if you like, for picture and sound. And this is what your normal position wants to look like, whether it be minimum or all the way up to normal. Okay, I think I get that. And then we've got an audio mix between source and external. So there's an external input for audio only, which is that socket there. Right, so we've got audio mixing only. For video, all we can do is switch between the two inputs, because video mixing is difficult. Right, this is disabled until we select this button, I think, and then we can alter the color balance. Okay, so if we swing it to red, yeah, very red, some green and blue, and in the middle, but you can see why you'd want to switch that off, because it tends to have an effect even when you don't want it to. And it seems to shift the image as well. So when you've got it selected on, the image seems to shift left a bit. Okay. And again, when this is on, I think we can alter the amount of colour as well. Okay, and then we have the enhancer. What does that do? Switch that on. And I think it's edge sharpening. Yes, that's edge sharpening, which just makes things look terrible if you wind it up because of all the composite video effects. So that's what that one does. But you could also use it to blur the image, which, given this particular source, is quite hard to see. Okay. And then the noise filter, we'll switch it on, but I don't think we'll see a difference. No, we can't see a difference because we don't have any noise. Right. And then you can mix in microphone input as well. I think that'd be probably paired up with Ext on that one. So you can do voiceovers and that sort of thing. And a headphone output. Okay, shall we have a look inside this one, see what level of technology we have in this box. These screws seem a bit heavy going. Maybe not the highest quality screws. God dear, these screws are horrible things. Well, my word, there's a lot in this, isn't there? What date are we looking at, roughly? 1987. Okay, so it is actually quite old, and it does look it a little bit. Big Mitsubishi chip there, lots of amplifiers, bit of CMOS logic, chip from Sanyo there, which I just vaguely recognise as being audio related possibly. See there, more of this stuff that makes you wonder, is it glue or is it leaky capacitors? And I believe that is glue because it's all the way up the side of the capacitors. But they've got it all over the board. There's resistors and stuff swamped in that brown glue. This, I think, is another one of those devices that I don't like so much because the transformer is permanently in circuit. The switch could and should have been designed to switch off the mains, but it actually switches off just the output of the transformer. So the input's permanently connected, which just means it sits there chewing up energy. And given how warm that transformer got in just a few minutes of operation, quite a lot of energy, I think. So there we have it. It's an older piece of equipment than I thought it was going to be. The only thing I could imagine using this for in today's world would be maybe that noise filter could be useful. So if you connected this to a machine that only had composite video output, something like Beta or N1500, N1700, something like that, that was working at composite video anyway, and you wanted to reduce the noise before capture, rather than capture the noise and then use software to try to reduce the noise at that point, that noise filter might conceivably be useful. But other than that, it's not terribly useful in today's world, I would say. Right, I'll put this one back together. Well, I found the instructions for the JVC unit, the video corrector JXC7, and it says, enhance noise filter, set the switch to on to reduce the noise which is increased on the dark image when the enhancer circuit is activated. So I'm not sure it's really there to reduce noise from an incoming image. It's more there to compensate for noise that the adjustment controls add from this very unit. So it's probably a little bit limited in its usefulness. So we'll stop there for today. The remaining items we'll cover in part 2 or maybe even part 3 of this Testathon, and they include the American Audio Media Operator Bluetooth sort of audio mixer with a Bluetooth player, the Cambridge Audio Amplifier, the PCM501 ES, which is usually used with Betamax video recorders, and we will test it with that, and that's in stunning condition. I've found also this universal remote control, so we'll have a play with that perhaps. And I'm not sure about this. This is a little bit obscure. Bluestream HDMI audio embedder de-embedder. Not quite sure what you'd use that for. Okay, so I'll do plenty more content on audio and video technology in the near future. Bye for now. This particular device, the audio mixer with Bluetooth, was given to me by the gym as non-working, and I had a quick look at it and I think it does work. So we'll test that, and if it works well, then if the gym can still use it in their system, I'll give it back to them. This is the same gym that gave me the massage chair as a non-working device a couple of years ago, and I repaired that and it's absolutely brilliant.